our Facebook pages at Cappy Talk FM as well as at Issues Pane Nyaya. We invite you to be part of the conversation on our WhatsApp number. That's 0773 910095, 0773 910095. And we also invite you to participate, and you can call through on our studio lines 0719 100 404.
Hey, Rumbi.
Hello, Leekay.
It's been a while.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
I'm right here.
Fantastic. Oh, I'm super excited.
It's good to be here discussing something that I think is on everybody's tongue at the moment. I think when it came out, we first saw it on social media. Before we actually saw anything official, it was all over social media. And the questions that we have tonight is what we hope to answer. And so what will happen, I do know that I'm in the presence of learned people. So I will play the part that I've been sent to play, which is the common person on the streets. We have questions that we need to be answered.
Absolutely. And so we definitely need to pick off from where we left off, and I'm excited. Always legal minds, we come together, we gel, we impart knowledge. Joined in the studio once again by my learned friend Mr. Kudakwashe Masiyenyama, a legal expert. Good evening, Kuda.
Good evening, Rumbi. How are you?
Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us once again.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Wonderful. So let's get straight into it. I think for diversity in relationships, do we accept that maybe is a good place to start? The common person in the street, Like, which is the constituency that you're representing tonight.
Absolutely.
Do they understand that there are diverse relationships? Are we accepting that there are different manner and complexion of my relationships to begin with, and this is what the civil partnership is? And because the law is recognizing that, we see that you're living in this way.
I think when you are single, that is, if you're not dating anybody and maybe you're still searching or you're not searching, yes, there's that appreciation and understanding. But as soon as you get into a commitment, and this is neither if you're married or you are committed as girlfriend and boyfriend, or you're engaged. Once that happens, you shut out the possibility of any other sort of relationship that your partner can get into. So yes, there is that realization, but accepting that my partner can have another person on the side becomes a foreign language once you commit into a relationship. And I'm sure this is what has brought us to discuss this. But I also want to think that this is what the law also considered, that Lee K could be married, but there's a possibility that Lee K himself could have another relationship, and he could actually disadvantage that person who is been in a relationship with. After 5 years, he decides, hey, it's over, I want to get back to be with my wife. And this one is saying, but I invested, not just emotionally, but I invested even financially. So do I just walk away with nothing? But that's difficult for Lee K to accept, to say, look, you knew this was a side gig. So it's okay for you to walk away. I don't owe you anything. But the law has come in and said, no, we need to protect this. But representing the common man on the streets, is that acceptable? No. So the question is, why did we decide to put this law into play?
Could the hot potato was kicked over to you?
All right. It's a nice question that is coming through. Why have we decided to put this law into place? Specifically, I believe it's in relation to what is this new term that is coming in, to say civil partnerships, which many are finding difficult to give a proper definition or a proper meaning. What really constitutes a civil partnership? But the background to this issue is, you recall very well that this law, before it was passed into law, it took a lot of time as a bill. Public consultations were made, representations were made. The two houses that we have themselves, the House of Assembly and the Senate, got a divided opinion, specifically in relation to this bill. This bill ascended to the president, and there was an outcry in relation to civil partnership. And we had the government through its spokesperson coming through to say, we have heard the cry and we are going to attend specifically to that particular question of civil partnership. So the question that is calling for an answer today is probably, did they indeed intend to the concerns or the concerns were not addressed? But legally, there were some amendments which we saw coming through as the bill was returned back to the minister, and then issues were attended to. It was refined, and all that stuff, because if my memory serves me well, initially there was no direct protection of the innocent spouse in relation to those who would be married, say under civil marriage, and then the other spouse engages in a civil partnership with another person. There was no that clear protection, which we have now seen coming through as the law was now passed, to say the rights and interests of the innocent spouse are protected. They cannot be tampered with in the event of the court being called upon to deal with the dissolution of a civil partnership. So this is some of the things that we saw coming, but it's now clear that there was what do you call it? The legislature insisted in bringing this protection. And my belief is that it was informed from a perspective where women were being exploited. The history of marriage in our country or in our jurisdiction have always been to protect the marriage institution in terms of, especially in terms of properties acquired during the subsistence of that marriage. And this is the reason why we have, legally we use the term to say the sanctity of marriage. Marriage is
sui generis as well, yeah. In a world of its own, in a class of its own,
yes,
for the common man.
All right, Rumbi, people will get angry at you.
Not at all, but I hear what you're saying, and Like, I can see, you want to ask a question, so okay, maybe we can break it down, and right, you already see how this civil partnership means something different for a woman who's married in a Chapter 511 marriage. It means something for a woman in a customary union. It means something for a woman who is single but in a long-term domestic arrangement. It means something for a woman who is in a union. No effort has been made to make any payments to either family. No customary law exists, and so it's quite wide when you look at civil partnerships. And
sure,
I feel like people are just looking at it from the extramarital standpoint. Yes, it's included in there, but it is not the end all and be all when you look at this particular provision.
Rumbi, I want to thank Kuda for breaking down a lot of things in his introduction there, and I think it has already answered some of the questions that a lot of people who sent me here had, but it is not exhaustive. So a couple of questions. I'm happy that you actually said you could tell from my facial expression that I had questions to ask. So the first question was, Kuda actually mentioned that it was against the background that a lot of women were being exploited. So should we say, first of all, this law that we're about to see, and by the way, someone asks when it's going to be put in effect, but should we say the background of it, the people who called for it were women? Because we have other questions that are going to follow. How does it benefit a man, and does it benefit a man who is in a civil partnership with a woman who's married? But let's find out, because Kula actually mentioned that women were being exploited. So should we say, is it correct to say the proponents of this, the people who called for this, were women?
I don't want to be gender specific. I will say that the law is created to protect the vulnerable. The vulnerable are often women. Yes.
Okay.
They are often women. Women are often more disenfranchised in many situations.
All
and
right.
yes, there were a few cases of women that were disenfranchised and left with nothing after long extents and unions. But this is not the only thing that drove this particular provision.
All
We
right.
also look at people in unregistered customary law unions, Kanotanonzima Uklu, where they've lived together. This man has not paid bride price or for one reason
To
or
this
the
woman.
other to this woman's yes,
Okay.
to this woman or to this woman's family, as it were. None of those rights have been performed. Saka we don't recognize that you are in a marriage. Then the law mutemo wanga wausunga recognize him unregistered customary law unions for purposes of distributing property. It's like running a company, it's like a partnership, but it was not a marriage. So these are the issues. So think of all those people who are under these particular relationships, under whatever definition you want to give.
Primarily the women is what we should be thinking about. But let me also then ask Kuda. Kuda, the next question that people would ask, this civil partnership, does it have a timeline for each thing to be considered a civil partnership? Is it 1 week? Do I stay with Rumbi for 1 week while I know I'm married? And then when I'm saying Rumbi, it's over after 1 week, because it does happen. Some have ended it after 1 day. But maybe it's 1 week to say it's over. Can she still say, but we were in a civil partnership? Or is it 1 month? Is it years that then makes it to be a civil partnership?
All right, thank you. To answer that, the correct answer would be to say we have to wait until it's tested in courts of law. This is something that have not yet gone through the courts. So it will be up to the jurisprudence that will see the courts, or the standard that the courts will put in place. Why am I saying so? Because in terms of section 41 subsection 3 of the new act, it's giving a court interpreting or seized with an opportunity to determine whether or not a civil partnership exists. It's giving the court wide discretion. There is no specific factor that the court will be limited to in determining the existence. What is put forth by the law is a guide to say, if the court is considering those questions, what are some of the issue, yet the list is not exhaustive. So it will then depend with what the court will see. Kuti ziri kumeka sense here. You see, for instance, I'll give just a few examples that are given there. The first one is to consider the duration itself of the relationship. But now, that's why I'm saying we still need the courts to determine, to say, can 1 week be enough? Can a month be enough? But I think each case would be determined on its own merits. It cannot be said every circumstance inofanira kuita for within a certain period of time. So this is the first thing that we see. So we have this as an example. Number two, whether or not sexual relationships or sexual relationship existed between the parties. You see, so it's another thing that the court will consider. The other thing will be the mutual support for each other. And I can go on and on, but the list is inexhaustive.
I think it's also essential to ipapo kuti ndiwedzere kuti court haisi kungoti because you say that you are in a civil partnership, it will be a civil partnership.
All right.
There is a process. You must go before the court when your relationship comes to an end. That's also another thing. These are things that will become necessary kana zvinoshandisika kana paita kakupesana ndopo tingeta kuti aiwa but panguva iye tanga tiri tese takange takumba chakati nechakati nechakati, and inini ndine ma property rights arising out of that joint ownership, arising out of that my effort and investment in the relationship. So just like a divorce, something has to go wrong. Irretrievable breakdown first. Then the court will say, okay, so what are you claiming? And then in assessing whether or not there's a civil partnership, like Kuda has said, one of our consider factors EYO. So, but obviously having a long relationship, I think, is essential. Apana period yakanyorwa zvayo, but I would assume you need at least 90 days, 100 days for things to start to germinate. So there's that will be considered. So it's not a green light, it's not a free for all. It doesn't mean that because we got in civil partnership nalike, then it is as you say.
Okay, so maybe my next question, I'm throwing this to Kuda, and Legal Bay, you can also jump in on this one. So the fear that's coming from Mrs. Kandiero, right, is she understands that unfortunately Lee K has Rumbi on the side, and let's say it's gone for 5 years, yeah, which is a bit scary when we look at this law. 5 years can constitute something happening there, especially when it ends. However, one of the biggest fear that Mrs. Kandiero has is when it ends, is Rumbi going to be entitled to the property that she and Mr. Kandiero own? Kula.
All right, thank you. No, the answer is no. She will not be, from the reading of the act. But it cannot also be a straight answer, because remember, we are saying what the law is saying is that it is protecting the rights, the interests, and everything that belongs to the innocent spouse. So your wife there will be protected in as far as her rights and her interests and her properties are concerned. What is distributed at the dissolution of a civil partnership are the assets and properties of the civil partnership. But the challenge that comes in is to differentiate property, to say this belongs to the marriage, this belongs
you want
to
say big house, you can say big.
Okay. All right, something like that, yes, for people to understand. This is property for the big house, this is property for the small house. For instance, during the subsistence of a civil partnership, this small house we are talking about, then you buy a car. And how are we going to know kuti mota isaka inonodonera kupi? Because yatengwa during the time when both are in existence. And last time I mentioned this, that in Zimbabwe normally my properties are mainly registered in the name of the husband. So the property is bought and it's registered in the name of the husband. Neither these two women have got their names appearing on that particular property. So at the dissolution, kanataka pass a civil partnership, what are we going to say? Whose property is it? Does it fall within the armpit of the civil partnership? Do we say the husband have got 50% and each of these women have got 25% each? What are we going to say? How are we going to how are we going to deal with that? Is really will remain a bone of contention.
And I'm sure that's where the problem is, both Rumbi and Kuda. I'm sure that's where the problem is, that lack of clarity. Kuda, you put it very right, and you used an example. Let's say a car is bought. I'm going back, and by the way, this is an example. I keep saying Mrs. Kandiero and Rumbi. I'm saying she then finds out maybe after 2 years that, oh, there's something going on between Lika and Rumbi. And she tries to fight it, obviously, and then she says, it's not going anywhere. And she decides to live with it, which is what a lot of people in marriages are doing. They just decide to live with it, begrudgingly. But that civil partnership then ends. But a car was bought during this civil partnership. Then at the dissolution, Rumbi then comes out guns blazing to say, hey, Miss Kandiero, you don't know. I contributed to that car. Saka mota yakuchenda. Yeah. ipapho manje I think ndopa nobuda mvunzo yokuthi, so does she still remain protected?
But in that instance, it was never anything that she worked to get. In that same example,
ndakangoya nemota ka ndatenga mota.
In that instance, Saka Mrs. Kandiero,
and she celebrated.
Yes,
right?
but you must then think into those aspects. Could a contributor then, if she can show that she contributed to buy this car, or maybe she's got papers for some import company and sure she did buy the car, then it becomes an issue of property rights. You can only exercise rights that you actually have. Saka kana just chako to begin with, there's nothing you can claim out of it, because this is what you now want to look at. Okay, maybe I didn't physically go and buy the car, but I contributed. The car was $6,000. The car contributor $3,000. Or maybe the car was bought for me as a gift. It's in my name. Ndine reg book. Rakatonyo ronzo Rumbidzai Venge. So it's my car.
So this is Mrs. Kandiero, right? Or I'm asking, are you in the reg book in the Mrs. Kandiero? But Rumbi contributed $3,000 towards it.
Okay, that makes it complicated.
Yes.
That makes it quite
These are the questions that people need to know.
Yeah, but let's look at it from those two fronts.
Yeah.
In the instance that Rumbi contributed $3,000, but the reg book is in Mrs. Kandiero's name,
yes.
then effectively it means that
and now the civil partnership is coming to an end.
Rumbi can then claim her $3,000 in the car.
Oh, the money.
Yes,
okay.
The money, because now when you've got a registration book in someone else's name, even though a registration book is not enough to prove ownership of the vehicle on a prima facie basis, or on the face of it, it would seem that she is the owner of that vehicle. Okay. So I can simply claim my $3,000, or that the car be sold and I get my $3,000 back.
Now, could outside all these property issues, because we know that the law will probably be able to take care of that, like this example that we've just given, maybe they'll say, give Rumbi back her $3,000. Yeah. Or maybe if they're going to look at a car doesn't accumulate value, it actually depreciates. They can say, yeah, it was $3,000 then, but now your money right now is worth $1,000. But that's another issue. But the actual issue, Kudai, here is actually not really about property, even though property comes into play. The issue and the biggest question that is coming is, what about our morality? Does this law not encourage, and I'm going to use a lighter word, chifambi, and that's not the word that's being used on social media, but are we not then encouraging chifambi when we say we are now recognizing a civil partnership? We've put it in English, but what are we doing? Because it's the morality, it's the emotions that people are trying to guard against.
Yeah, that one is quite a big challenge. However, the point remains the same, that morality and law are not one and the same thing. And a law that appears to be immoral is as effective as a moral law. That's the position. It's quite unfortunate. But answering you from an individual perspective, I think I agree with you 100%. Because from the onset, let's take a person who is contracting into a civil marriage. Two people are binding themselves on oath to say, I'm going to live, till death do us part. I have made a decision and I'm covenanting with this person that I will stay with that particular person for life. Then we have the law that is coming in and actually saying, in the event that we then discovered kuti mumaka buda kunze, whether mkadzi kana kuti murume kana kuti vese, kana tazonoti ndo zvakaitika, this is what happened. The law is coming in to say, no. At the dissolution of that particular other relationship, properties have to be shared. Issues of maintenance have to be considered, and what have you. And then it proceeds to say, the question of bigamy will not arise when we are dealing with the dissolution of a civil partnership. Literally, it's giving that leeway to say, yeah, people are now at liberty in a way, but though it's not removing the right of the innocent spouse to sue for adultery damages, it's still there. The innocent spouse can sue that small house or that civil partner for damages. But now the protection that is coming in by the law, especially in relation to properties, is coming in to dilute what I referred to earlier on, the sanctity. But I will also be quick to say, from a moral perspective as well, that we have been on this decline for quite a long time now. You discover that prior to this, the law was actually protecting the kids. Children that are born out of any relationship were protected by the law. They had a right. Every right that any child has, they had that right, to the extent of having a right to inherit from their father's estate or from their parents' estate, whether or not they were born in or out of wedlock. So, but to come in to say actually the perpetrator himself or herself of such a relationship also stand to benefit, I think it degrades our moral standing. It has quite a negative effect on who we are as a people.
Because you see the issue there, and I'm sure in today's language they'll say balance me on this one. Kuda said it right and says this law comes in to protect the innocent spouse. I'm taking it as it is, the innocent spouse, which means this is the married woman at home who's being protected.
Or the married man.
Okay, yeah, I was going to come to that. But is it not a contradiction when we say we are protecting the innocent spouse, when again we are seeming to be saying that one who is not the spouse has certain rights that they can benefit from? How do we say we are protecting the innocent spouse? Because the innocent spouse, whether it be the woman or the man right now, is feeling like, but you've just given leeway, and you are actually going to stand in court and protect this person should they come to a dissolution of this relationship. So how are you protecting me who's got a certificate of marriage or who's got a recognizable marriage? Because it seems like kumpa ruremekedzo rwanga asina kare pasati pane izvika aingoshorwa nesociety zvazviri zvekuhwanda, but uyu manje akunozoziva kuti no pazvinopera ndichatonomira mumatare ndotoprotectwa ndotobuda ndakabata something. And something where the big house, as you said it.
You know, I think in terms of that particular aspect, when you look at the wording and the intention of the legislator, section 41, subsection 5, subsection 6 are really important to answer your question, Like. And I think Kuda touched on this, but kunevara kuterera mutemo uyu uri kutaura zvakare kuti hanzi where there is someone, an innocent is being used to the extent of it's the person who's not in the relationship. Kana pane ma assets or a division, apportionment or distribution of anything that the spouse, what we call the innocent spouse, has accumulated, those assets cannot be shared or cannot be ascribed to the civil partner. That's the extent of the protection. To say, no, okay, we actually recognize that you have your own corner and iwe wangono zako, perhaps in hiding in the dark, whatever it is, but it's trying to balance those two interests to say, okay, in as much as it may be immoral, in as much as it may contribute to the stripping away of our dignity, our ubuntu sevanu, but is it donkeys who are in these relationships with people? It's not. It's human beings, it's men, upstanding men and women who are doing these things. So, you know, the law must come in to really look at what's happening in society. It's like a flash a flashpoint of what's happening in society. So for those people, and it's happening at alarming rates. At alarming rates, to the extent that when public consultations were done, this aspect kept coming back. When they went out there and discussed it in Parliament, this aspect kept coming back. Whether it's because there are more people who who are attending, or whether it's more married men, married women who want to have relationships on the side recognized. We don't know what motivated it, but ultimately it's not just extramarital affairs that will fall under this cover. I'm thinking it was more done to protect those with customary marriages, those who cannot actually pinpoint ours is not a marriage but we're together, we've been investing in each other, we've got children, we've got lives that are fused together, but we don't fall into the definition of marriage, whether by general law, whether by customary means, or any other means. Now there's a qualified marriage as well, which is an extra step, I think, that the law is making to recognize marriages. Also, the Marriages Act encourages everyone with an unregistered law union to register so that they can receive protection and equal and equal rights upon dissolution, and even kuti mchato wacho upiwe uremu. All this is coming out of this particular aspect. So I wouldn't want us to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Then Nyaya bigamy that you've spoken about. Bigamy is a criminal offense in terms of criminal code. If you are in a monogamous union, chapter 511 is one man, one wife. If you were found to have been married to someone else under that, then you would be charged with this crime. But now, for purposes of that civil partnership, Mun Uyu shall not be guilty of bigamy. But if this person goes and takes another person, or in chapter 511, or another general law marriage, that remains bigamy. This innocent spouse can still sue for adultery damages, but it's almost like, it's a dog chasing its tail, which should come first. But this is what we have now, and I think all efforts are being made to try and protect and see to everyone's interests.
Yeah. So the next thing that I would like you to speak to is, we have a section of people who are actually saying, where did these hearings happen? And that usually happens when something is passed into law. People start saying, I've got a message here on WhatsApp that says it's blaming parliamentarians and lawyers such as yourselves.
For what?
I'll read the message as it is once I get back to it. But basically they're saying for putting American laws into Zimbabwe. So, but the issue goes back to the issue of public hearings.
Absolutely.
I would like both of you learned people to speak about public hearings, because first of all, I understand that when these things are called for, beginning even at local council level, hearings are called for, town hall meetings are called for, people do not attend. But then when something is then passed, that's when we start claiming, Guti, you never came. So tell me, and I'm going to ask this so that we say it here. Where public hearings held
Absolutely.
for this particular thing that we're speaking about? Because there is a section of people that are claiming that ayo magazitira muri koko, and now you're putting this into law. Is that even possible? Is that even possible that a law can be passed in Zimbabwe without the proper processes being followed? I mean, school us on that one.
Okay, thank you. Definitely, public hearings are carried out. There is actually a layout with specific reference to this act that is in place. As I have mentioned earlier on, public hearings were conducted in different places around the country. After the consultations, then the bill went back for debate in the House of Assembly and in the Senate. Then there was another outcry that kept on coming, and then there was another public hearings which were then conducted again. So this one, I can say there were extensive public hearings which were conducted in respect of this one, because they were done twice. It was not once. But what normally happens is that in the radio, on the television, announcements are made. Public announcements are made every now and then that there is going to be the public hearings in Chinoi, in Bulawayo, in Gweru, in Mutare, various places. There are going to be public hearings. On top of that, there will be an invitation of written submissions to say those who may not be able to attend the public hearing can submit their thoughts and their positions in writing to the clerk of parliament. You know, so this is open, but we don't have a practice in the nation. I said it some time ago that many parents, we also had the same scenario with our Education Act. When it was a bill moving around and saying we now want to go to, is it 5.1, what not what, everyone was ignoring until it became a law, and everybody is now saying, no, makala atikwadza, and everyone is crying foul. Who came up with this law? These guys are doing us a disservice, but there is lack of will in the generality of our people to participate in these activities.
Rumbi, I would like you to speak just a little bit more about that, because even earlier on I was listening to you as you were speaking about NDS1, and it was clear from the reactions and some of the notions that came through that, again, we're not reading NDS1. We are just saying, but certain things are going to happen or start happening that are actually articulated in the National Development Strategy. And then we're going to say, where was this? This never happened. You never asked us. And I know that you've done the same work on the Constitution itself, to say, please read the Constitution. It's there for free. You can also even download it. I just like you to speak about it, because definitely there is a part of the population that says these consultations never happen.
Thanks for that, Like. You know what? To be honest, I'll say, hongu, yebo, yes, zvakaitika. There were consultations that were done. When it was a bill, it was circulated quite widely. But as you both said, I mean, when it comes to things that are of benefit to people, things that have a certain, a certain burden that's required. Anything, any legislation that's supposed to be passed, or any engagement would require that you actually read the bill, would require that you put your submissions in a certain format in order for them to even be considered, and so on. But you need to be on top of things. So what tends to happen, Like, is I don't know why people have a lot of apathy. A benefit to us. We don't want to be involved in anything beyond a page. We don't want to read. And this is the truth. Public hearings were had. Many civic groups actually were moving and trying to organize. Not only women, but on many aspects. I know that even in terms of the traditional leaders, there was quite a move, because you'll find that the Lobola aspect was greatly amended because of input from my public hearings, my public consultations.
So let me read the messages, because I'm going to come. I told you that I'm representing the common men on the streets, and the common men on the streets is not all agreed in one direction. So I'm going to throw another side of this discussion. But let me read this one about what we've just been addressing. One our MP ne lawyer waurayanyika sure tinovhotera kuti waende muparliament kunomirira zvido zvedu, ivo wakuenda kunopasisa mitemo yekuamerica muno muzimbabwe. Handizivi kuti chikoro chinopusisa here shuwa varimo vakuru vanorangana kupasisa mitemo isina basa hamunyari here ma-MP nema-lawyer. I just wanted to read this one so that you know that it's not coming from me. But we also have someone who says here, why are we all surprised when law comes? Who puts these laws? And then someone says, let's address the lack of will rather than pass bills based on a few. I think public hearings and consultation should only pass when the public meets a certain percentage, because it will still be a law by a few. So maybe we need to speak about what happens when something is taken to consultations and it goes through the bill, I think, and then it goes to a law. But that's a separate discussion. But I just needed to throw this in. But I was saying that there is also now a section of the same people who sent me, the common men, at first when I came through, I was asking on behalf of the innocent spouse to say, how do we say we're protecting the innocent spouse when we also seem to be protecting this new civil partnership? But then there's a section of society who are also saying, let's not be pretenders. These things happen.
Yep.
And they go on to say, because remember I did ask this question at the beginning, that this seems to be protecting women, and this seems to have been propelled by women because they were the short end of the stick. But the people who are arguing in the opposite of what I was arguing in the beginning are saying, let's not be pretenders. And they even accuse Zimbabweans of being too much of pretenders. They say they even know these civil partnerships. And sometimes when the relationship ends, for 5 years. It's the same family that we are hiding. Remember, Rumbi, we had a discussion at one time about a funeral. What happens when the man passes away? We had a very heated debate. So there's a constituency of people who are saying, let's not be pretenders. They are saying it's justified for this person to be protected. Because 10, 15 years, surely the man cannot just decide to end the relationship so that she pay.
So you see how difficult it is to be a lawmaker.
Absolutely. So I would like both of you to speak to that, because we want to try and knit this thing all together, because we have one constituency that's arguing against, say, Chifambi and whatnot, but some are saying whether we want to call it Chifambi or whatever, but and sure what you are not waruma civil partnerships, let's say mukadzi kana murume vana vedu, and ndo zvanga azvipira kuti inini handisi kuzoroorwa asi ndine murume anondida, inini handisi kuzoroora asi ndine mukadzi ane munhu wake asi anondida, zvotoenda for 10 years. So I don't know how you're going to put that together and then speak to the issue of civil partnerships.
Yeah.
But I'm saying those are the two schools of thought. Yeah.
You know, in trying to be honest with you, we're never going to come to Pane Ambotaura Zekuti, oh, you know, did we have the numbers? What was taken in? I'm also seeing, you know, message from Liz with Jamila here saying, you know, the participation and, you know, people's opinions being taken in or not. We would never get to a place where we can adequately say that and we've taken everyone's view, because it's not realistic. And you know, we what we do is we look at the average, or we see, you know, where somebody said, oh, why is it that they cannot, they continue to pass bills even where there's low attendance? Because if the apathy is upon yourself and you don't show up, there's nothing more that we can do. And I want to speak a little more about Shinshachineta as people. When you are above the age of 18, Like, you are now an adult in terms of the laws of this country, and certain things, or most things, that you consent to do or that you do voluntarily, as long as it's not a criminal offense, or you are not breaking any laws, you are answerable to no one. So in these instances, when you are in a marriage, you're answerable to your spouse. The reason why you're going out, or maybe, I don't know, the law does not regulate morality.
I think could I say that also?
Yeah, the law does not regulate morality.
Okay.
If you want to be moral and upright, you do that within yourself. The laws are simply there to guide, because there are things happening in society. Saka mtema ona zvawatadza munhu ari kuita ma relationship 7 ndiye ari kutadza. Mutema uri kuti we are seeing what's happening and tida kuvabatsira vanhu ivavo. If we all stop doing the mjolo thing and we all stop having extramarital affairs and we all start committing to actually marrying the people that we're with for more than a year, people with children with etc., then this law will be abrogated by non-use. You're going up aside because no one is using
by
it.
non-use. I like
Yes.
that. Okay. Very interesting statement there, by non-use. So I think maybe if someone wants to call, what are the numbers? Maybe we can just take a few calls in the last 8 minutes. But while we're doing that, one aende kuma public hearing, pre-budget meeting haina kuitwa kumfakos. It was cancelled because of low turnout.
Only 16 people turned up.
It has been rescheduled to this coming Sunday. So it's just speaking to people then who get surprised with budget might was say, Maria Kawandi Sakai, but there was a chance to go, and then there was low turnout.
Or maybe I said, and before Kuda comes in, I said, in jest, could it maybe they need to start, serving food at these consultative meetings, serving food at my, we're having a bill discussion here. I don't know what it takes to incentivize people, but maybe legislators should also look at doing it differently. Maybe not just putting a blanket announcement in the newspaper or having it said on radio. Maybe there needs to be another way to excite the plebiscite, to excite people to attend.
That's an idea.
Come in.
Yeah, I agree with you that probably the advertisement, like what one listener said, the advertisement part of it may need to improve. We are now in a digital world. I would like to think it has to extend also to social media. It has to also extend to other digital platforms. And these public hearings should also then extend to that place where they can be held online. And it may actually bring in a better because you know what, it's not only in relation to these public hearings that we are seeing a challenge. We are living in a very busy, fast environment, and in an economy that is tough like this in Zimbabwe. You are also seeing that even the church is now becoming a victim of attendances. People are it's no longer business as usual where we used to gather mega churches. So we need to move with the times and do that. It may help, but more than that, I would like to think there is need for a political will in our legislators, in those, should I say, the powers that be, to really take it up upon themselves and say, we are going to do this, and we are going to encourage citizenry to attend, to participate, to give an input into this, rather than to just do it as a formality to fulfill a duty. That's where the difference is. Because remember, the parliamentary portfolio committees that are set in place to conduct these hearings are incentivized. So if I don't want to sound political, of course, but if it moves just away from just doing or performing a duty, to know that we need to change the culture, we need to show to our people that this is very important, and your insight is very important. Your word, your thoughts are welcome. You are valued. It may also make a very big difference. And I would also want to add on to say, I think there is a disadvantage in marginalized society, rural areas, and because mainly you hear of these bigger towns. That's where it is announced, but the rural folks normally they don't extend to that. They will have to remember there are now transport expenses and what have you. So a person would say, I would do that. But I would want to give a comment in relation to marriages vis-a-vis what we have been calling moral issues and what have you. I would like to give this comment that what we need to understand, somebody has said we are borrowing American laws and bringing in that may not really be disputed, to say there is too much of borrowing that we are doing, which is to a certain extent inevitable, because we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a society. We need that. But you would notice that this is an interesting thing. The law, now what the law is saying and what the law is stating is different from what is obtaining on the ground. Because the law is saying, if you want to get married under customary law, you have your customary marriage that you can get into. And the customary marriage is the one that is going for lobola. But what are we having on the ground? Tese tiriwe ku church toda kunochata mchato we civil marriage. Astinotangira ku customary. Lobola day first. Then after the lobola day, tapedza zve lobola day, nobody is thinking about going kwa chief kuno pure marriage certificate re customary law. We immediately switch And we have borrowed another phenomenon inotonzi kukumbira muchato. After mapedza kubvisa zvese tinokumbira muchato kuma in-laws. This muchato watiri kukumbira, is it part of our laws and customs? This is, we are now going, we are fusing, we are mixing, we are diluting. I don't know the correct term to use. But yes, but this is where it is all starting. Why are people now pushing for that particular type of marriage? You say, you can now the marriage certificate to know church cannot, to know the magistrate, to know a civil marriage. It's because there is someone who is saying, I want you for myself and for myself alone. The other person may not be agreeing, but because arikuzauta ndingatozova ndiri bachura vese ndo zvavakuda, they will go and say ndinongozongochita. So you see where the problem is emanating from. Problem iri kutobvira, haisi kubvira pakuti tazoisa mutemo une civil partnership. It's coming from a dilution that is coming way before people have started to live together or contracted into a marriage contract. One of the times I said people are getting into these marriages for all wrong reasons. And at the end of the day, when we are having problems, we gather and say, where is the problem? And we start to blame the lawyers, blame the legislators, blame the pastors, blame everybody except ourselves. But really, we are having an identity crisis and an inconsistent that is gross when we talk about these laws.
He summed it up.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're going to be soon letting go our listeners on Star FM. But as we round off, Rumbi, I think Kuda also said something very interesting when he says it's not just to do with public hearings, but even institutions like the church are suffering from attendance issues. I would also like to say, because Issues Pane talks about a kaleidoscope or a myriad of things, I would also like to say, as we speak about innocent spouse, I would like to challenge you to ask how innocent you really are. Not in terms of cheating, but we're speaking about people not giving attention to public hearings because they are too busy. That's what Kuda said. And he's correct in saying people are too busy to go to church. People are too busy to go to public hearings because they're looking for the dollar. But my challenge right now is some of you are also too busy to attend to your marriages. So you might not be as innocent as you think you are.
Wow. I can't add or take away anything.
I'm just saying, because this is Issues Pane.
I want to show Pane is sure. Yeah, I think we're going to need a part 3 of this one.
I just put it out there.
Thanks so much for being with us on this edition of Issues Pane. Kuda, thank you so much. We appreciate your candor. And I think what Jekesa Zakati one day, we invite our listeners to continue to interact with us, as well as if you want the Marriages Act, please send a message. I'm a responsible citizen. If you want the Marriages Act, you want NDS one, whatever it is that you require, I will send it to you. Let's become readers and purveyors of information and the right information. That's it from us.
Thank you very much for listening to Issues Pane. Follow us on Facebook and continue listening to Capital 100.4 FM as well as Star FM. Good evening.
Good evening.
Issues Pane Nyaya is brought to you by Chengeto Africa. We invite your participation on 0773